What's going on, Meat Mafia? Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. Before we get rolling here today, we want to give a quick shout out to you, the listener. We are so thankful to have you on board with the Meat Mafia, and we cannot thank you enough for your endless support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you so much for your comments, feedback, likes, subscribes, listens, everything. It means the world to us. With that being said, please go to your podcast medium's platform, give us a 5-star review. If it's not 5 stars, maybe don't give us a review. Subscribe, do the whole thing. We really appreciate that. And also, please go check out some of the links below. We have some great sponsors, and they are killing it in the world of food and providing great, high-quality food for people just like yourself. Quickly outlining our sponsors, we have Holy Cow Beef, Wrich Ranches, Equip Foods, and the Carnivore Bar. These are all great products. If you want to learn more, go check out the links below. Without further ado, here's a word from our sponsors. Holy Cow Beef is a regenerative farm based out of Lubbock, Texas, with humanely raised grass-fed, grass-finished beef available for sale and shipment. Companies like ButcherBox source from outside of the US and Australia and don't specifically have the American Grass-Fed Association, or AGA, label, but Holy Cow does. They also sell chicken and pork in addition to their amazingly high-quality beef raised right here in Texas. Alden and Ann Warren have overcome their own health struggles, and they have inspired us by the way they live their lives and by the way they raise their animals. So go check them out in the link below, and they also accept Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go check out Holy Cow Beef. Also, if you're in Colorado, go check out Wrich Ranches, a grass-fed, grass-finished regenerative farm servicing all over Colorado. He also accepts Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go hit up Wrich Ranches and get your beef today. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is an animal-based, shelf-stable product with only 3 simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. The bar is inspired by the ancient traditions of Native Americans who needed to create pemmican bars to preserve meat for long-distance travel. The Carnivore Bar is perfect for animal-based athletes or busy people looking to follow a low-carb diet. It's easy to throw in a bag and take with you anywhere you're going, whether it's a workout, hike, or even packing it for a snack at work. I throw them in my triathlon bag and take down a bar immediately after working out. They're a fantastic product, so go check them out and use our discount code in the link below. All right, Lindsay, Animal Based Bay, welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast. We're bummed we're not doing this in person, honestly. We're supposed to do it in Austin in person. We had to move it around, but thank you for joining us virtually. This is great.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much. Bummed as well. It's not in person, but hey, we got a second best option here.
Yeah, we'll take it though. We'll take the Zoom. And you two both met in Costa Rica back in the fall. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
Jumping off some waterfalls.
It
Well,
was good. Did you made the long jump? Did you, Harry?
I
Or
did. I was scream. I don't think I've ever screamed like that before in my life, but yeah, I did make the long jump. And
yeah.
then I got to witness a few people do the long jump and almost hurt themselves.
yeah.
I heard some noises that I had never heard before, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
You did it too, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a little nervous, but I had to. I mean, I got to meet the challenge.
Right.
Lindsay, were you even publicly speaking about nutrition at that point? Did you have an Instagram account when you two first met?
Not as animal-based bay,
Okay.
no.
Yeah.
It was more kind of geared towards empowerment. I was actually doing workshops that took, um, I mean, I guess specifically women through empowerment through physical, through like intention setting and then kickboxing, physical fitness, got them into their bodies. And then I actually had this thing at the end where I had them break boards as
Mm.
a way to break through fears and
Mm.
or old narratives. So I was kind of doing that as it relates to empowerment, but not animal based bay.
Got it.
What was the genesis behind that project?
Oh, I think it was more. It was self-reflective in ways where I also knew that a lot of women create these stories and narratives, and even men too, actually. And it was open for
Definitely.
men as well, that they create these narratives in their head and they believe it for quite some time that, whether they're not good enough or they are, they are not healthy enough, or they're not strong enough, or just, all of these things that you think, that actually prevent you from moving forward and from achieving goals. And so essentially I wanted to create a story around, it was something that I went through. I was a martial artist when I was 5, and I grew up, my dad was actually my instructor. He was sensei.
That's so
and
cool.
and so essentially, I grew up doing martial arts all the way until about college. And then I didn't do it anymore because I left. I went to Connecticut. Quinnipiac University was where I went to college.
Nice.
And, um, and then I didn't do any martial arts because why would I take, instruction from somebody else other than my dad? He's like the main man. So that led to, a little bit further away from martial arts, and years and years and years. And then when I wanted to get back into it, I was actually afraid to get back into it because I thought, oh, I'm a washed up martial artist. Mind you, I had a black belt when I left.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, I'm a washed up martial artist. I don't know what I'm doing. If I walk into another dojo, people are going to be like, wow, she's a black belt. And
Mm.
no, sure, maybe I wouldn't be as flexible as I once was, or maybe just like, I just needed to dust off the cobwebs, but it prevented me from going back to something that I truly loved.
Mhm.
So then when and this was a narrative that I created, prevented me doing this for years, and it didn't feel good. And so eventually, so then I went back finally and just got over that fear. And I was fine. I did great. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I found, purpose daily. And I think that creating these narratives in our head that prevents us from doing something that makes us feel that good on a daily basis is something that should be stopped
Mhm.
earlier on. And so I wanted to create this workshop that really involved women to come face to face with their narratives and actually physically feel strong in their bodies and break through something and break through
Mm.
wood so that they feel confident, they say it out loud, and they reverse their narrative where it's like, where once I was a washed up martial artist, now like, no, I'm a badass ninja. And not,
Mhm.
it's like I probably learned more in my martial arts mentally than I have physically, and that's what
Mm.
really makes me a black belt, right? So you got to change the narrative and change the story. And it was really, I just wanted to inspire women to take control of their confidence and of their power. So yeah, that's
Mm.
kind
It kind of reminds
Car-
me of that's Stephen Pressfield's concept of the resistance. I feel like a lot of people don't really appreciate the resistance of like restarting something, which is what you were just talking about. It's like most people talk about starting something as this huge challenge to overcome, but even restarting, there's like fear on fear to just take that entry into re-entering some realm that you're a master in it. You're a black belt.
of
That's
right.
crazy that you still feel that level of fear,
Yeah, yeah. You just got to lean into those moments.
right?
I I think Carnivore Ninja could have been a really cool Instagram name for you, just so you know. If you ever need a backup account.
Well, I was actually contemplating Nutrition Ninja at one
Ooh, I
point.
like that.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that ends, but yeah.
Well, it's cool to learn that, to learn a little bit more about your backstory, because I feel like a lot of people in the animal-based community, we have a tendency just to kind of like focus solely on nutrition and diet. But I think it's really cool that you have this balanced approach where you started off leading these workshops. So you're already in tune with the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and then you can add the diet to it. So you're not just focused on one single variable.
Right. Yeah. For sure. I think, help help needs to be genuine, and I believe
Hmm.
that that is from a holistic point of view. You can only
Yeah,
do so much for nutrition biologically, but it's really about psychological and also like emotional health.
Mm.
totally, totally. And when we kicked off, I was asking you that question about your Instagram because before we hit record, I was saying, I've probably been following your account since the start of the year around. And I mean, your account has grown so quickly. You're already up to like 50,000 followers. And I think that's a testament to the quality of the content that you've put out. So I think I was just curious, what really motivated you? Like, what was your catalyst to say, hey, I want to go public with this. I want to make an account. I want to start talking about nutrition. Would love to just learn a little bit about your mindset there.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think there was, I think that piece was just was missing, to talk to women in that way, especially from my experiences, and then the women that I have surrounded myself with who have gone carnivore as well, and just hearing their stories, specifically as it relates to women's issues. It's like PMS, and things like that, that women identify themselves with, where we disassociated ourselves with PMS because we weren't experiencing that anymore on the diet. So these conversations that I would have with these women were just, resonated. And I thought, like, wow, we really need to share this with more women out there. And then in particular, there is good information out there, but I think I wanted to try to find a way to make it more accessible for women as well, and to make it a little softer, because it's not easy for us to dive right in and eat meat off the bone and eat testicles. And not that I'm asking anybody to do that. I think there's a way to share our stories, share our experience, and I want to have a platform where it's not just me really speaking, but it's me wanting to engage and incite conversation and women all over, so that they can talk and they can comment, because what may work for me may not work for every woman out there. But I want them to know that they have other options and other solutions other than just eating raw testicles. Like, that's not, you don't need to do that. But yeah.
So I was curious to get your take on this. Do you think there's a one size fits all, or is it more just steering people in the right direction so they know which avenues to go down and which ones to not go down? Because our basic conceptual framework for people who are just starting off down this journey is like, start with real foods, throw away all the ultra processed foods, and right there you're winning, like right off the bat. Do you have any frameworks like that for, like, how you sort of interpret and talk about nutrition?
Totally. Yeah, I think simple is best, and it's just a good baseline. I do not think that one size fits all at all. And again, like, I'll relate this specifically to women too, with just all the hormones, and and just women are definitely different than men. But just as on an individual level, completely different as well. And I think the more that you just eliminate into a really basic way of eating, then the more that you can pinpoint and understand where things are coming from. So if you have like an allergy or a skin irritation or something, instead of choosing from an entire pantry full of possible ingredients that could be the reason, you only have to work with meat, organs, dairy, fruit, and honey. And even then, you know, depending on the situation and what the issues are, even then you don't have to eat all of the fruits either, to make it even more simple, and kind of start there. And then I mean, that's the basis that I kind of give my clients. At first I hear from them and what they're going through, and then I help them navigate. I help them really become aware of what they're feeling too, and so, like, I try to find out what is going to work for them from a holistic standpoint, right? We can only do so much. um, Saying that, oh, this is good for you because this provides XYZ, this vitamin, mineral, but it's more of, like I said, the whole person. And to start out as a baseline is super helpful in just expediting that process, instead of it being like, oh, it's been, it's like 20 years of trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the foods that you really base the pillar of your diet around?
I mean, mostly organs for sure, because I think that that right there was a game changer into when I really focused on making sure I had that every day, especially fresh organs. That was a game changer in mood stability. Like, literally the next menstrual cycle that I had, I didn't even know that it was happening. And I know maybe you guys don't resonate with this, but you've probably heard from either girlfriends, sisters, or
Yeah. Third
your own,
party.
yeah, that, like, it disappeared. It
Wow.
completely, meaning like the symptoms disappeared, the headaches, the mood instability. I didn't feel bloated, and I sat back and I was just like, is this real? And I still to this day, when I do menstruate, think to myself, is this still real? Like, nah, it's got to come back, right? The pain and the bloating.
Wow.
But I thought, I was like, well, I don't care if it's clogging my arteries. If I
Yeah.
feel this good during that time of month, I'm in, I'm sold. So the basis would be organs. And so that's kind of why I really hold that as priority. And so when women do come to me about, having those difficulties during that time of the month, I highly,
Mhm.
highly suggest fresh organs. And then meats as well, of course, ground beef definitely. And then, steaks when I want to treat myself for sure.
Yeah.
And then fat. And so what I do is I actually have more fat than I do fruit, because I feel that I thrive more on fat as I do fruit. And I know this can be kind of tricky with some people. This is why it's really important to be in tune with your own body. But I just work better off of fat. Um,
Mhm.
that's kind of the basis of it. And then fruit really comes with lifestyle. So if
Mhm.
I'm super active, you know, depending on the day, that's how much fruit I'll consume. But that kind of, I play with that a lot. But the organs, meats, and fat, animal fat specifically, pretty much kind of stay consistent and the same.
Mhm.
For the organ meats, are there any, like liver is probably the most common one or easily available to get. Are there any other ones that you try to incorporate daily? It's obviously it's a hard one to incorporate daily. You have to be really intentional about going and getting it depending on where you are. So I'm just curious, like how you approach even just getting that in your freezer.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess when I first started, I was definitely all into the organs, right? There was tons of organs that I started with. I mean, I've even done thymus and adrenals, which at one point,
Wow.
note to self, just make sure you learn about the cooking methods, because I got violently ill when I tried adrenals. I guess I didn't boil it enough.
Hmm.
Gosh.
But I tried those. Super good. I mean, they were super tasty when the second time I tried it.
Mm.
I was bold enough to try it again.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so I used to get a ton of organs that way. And I do when I'm in a place long enough, I will, because then I can ration it and then nothing goes to waste. And it really never does anyways, because I have a dog and she eats it. But yeah, that's what I would do. I would fill kind of my freezer with all those organs. But now lately it's been, definitely liver every few days. I want to make sure that I get about 5 ounces per week. Heart is pretty much in on my cutting board daily.
Mm.
And then I have actually pancreas in the freezer too as well. That's not often every day, might be sometime like once a week. Kidney is something that I incorporate maybe a couple times a week, as well, because I feed my dog Choxie. She actually like had kidney issues. So I
Oh, okay.
like feed her kidney. She did, but that's a whole nother like tangent and story. But anyway, so I do that. However, I've also seen blends that by actually North Star Bison does it. It's called Old World Blend, where they have
Hmm.
all of those organs in there.
North Star
That's
Bison.
cool. Yeah, North Star Bison does.
Nice.
They just launched it, so it's like a new thing for them. And I thought that was super cool. But other than that, if I'm not staying in a location, long enough, I definitely supplement with heart and soil supplements, which are the desiccated organs, as you guys are aware. And then things like I will take things that I can't get access to, like blood, from that's found in lifeblood, and what else, like hair, skin, and nails has a really from collagen, or collagen sourced from cartilage, trachea, and scapula. So it's really
Hmm.
high end, high quality.
I mean, just from a travel and convenience standpoint, just being able to throw some of those capsules into a Ziploc bag and take it with you are huge, especially if you're trying to make sure that you're supplementing the right way with those organs. But I actually really liked what you said about the way that you incorporate fruit and fructose, because I'm sure you hear this all the time. Fruit is such a contentious point of debate in like the carnivore animal based community. But I think there is this misconception of people that are animal based that there's some people that think they can just crush fruit all day long. So I really liked what you said about how you very strategically will plan it out. Where, like, if you're having an active day, it seems like you'll incorporate more. And then if you maybe are a little bit more sedentary, you'll stick to more fat or organ meats or maybe something more carnivore-ish. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's definitely is. And I've definitely had some, comments and DMs about the fruit questions. And, there's a lot of people too who think like, oh, well, I get bloated after I eat fruit, or, maybe I feel like I'm gaining weight when I eat fruit. I don't think fruit is
Mm,
working for me. And my answer is then don't do it because
yes.
it's not working for you. Maybe like a little bit of honey to get a little bit of carbohydrates, because there is that, fear of it, um, sort of messing with our hormones and, electrolyte issues if you're kind of more carnivore or keto like. So I feel that fruit or carbohydrates rather is important. So whether that maybe be from raw dairy to, you can get your carbohydrates that way. You can minimize the fruit, again, depending on the individual. Some people thrive off of just like, you know eating tons of fruit throughout the day, but I do
Mhm.
think it's a daily, awareness that you just have to understand, even where you are. I feel like in Costa Rica, I
Mm,
need more fruit. I don't know.
Interesting.
Maybe it's the location, maybe it's the fruit that I was eating, the papaya, the pineapple that, grows locally there. So there's a lot of just self-experimentation too that I do with fruit, where I'm just like, I don't know, I just don't feel the same in the States on fruit as I do in Costa Rica.
mm.
And
What's
so
interesting there is, like, I know you're in Texas, so you're still getting plenty of sunlight, but like vitamin D metabolism or the vitamin D plays a huge role in metabolizing a lot of that sugar from fruit. So maybe there's something there where it's like you're in a tropical area, you're getting more sun, and you're able to actually just take in that fruit a little bit easier.
100%, and just closer to the equator as well. So,
Yeah.
I totally, totally can see that. And that's why I'm super grateful to have these opportunities to travel,
Mhm.
because then it keeps me honest. And then it also keeps me, in the conversation to be relatable to other people around the world.
Mm. You had a really cool video recently about hunting and getting closer to your food. And
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome because that's something that we try to talk about a bunch. Just like engage with your food system, try to buy from a farmer that you can go like shake his hand, ask him questions, him or her questions. Is that something that you have always been about, or like when did that sort of start to become important to you on your journey?
Yeah, so when I started off as a carnivore actually first before introducing fruit about 2.5 years ago, maybe a little more now. And prior to that, I was more veggie based, right? And so being in that, I guess, like being in that bucket, I was surrounded myself almost with, vegans or vegetarians, and they would
Mm,
talk about the animals and all of this, right? And so I almost felt a little bit guilty doing this, the carnivore way, because I would just, that would kind of always be in the back of my mind. And then once I felt the actual physical benefits of it, I then started to think about just the process of it all, right? How did it get on my plate? I'm consuming this, and I've gone fishing before and have been fine with that. But I really wanted to lean into that piece of it, to
Mm,
really be connected with my food, and to make sure that, if this is something I'm going to maybe share. And at this point it's probably about, a year and a half down the road too, and
mm,
I didn't really say anything to anybody, because this was like another lifestyle that I was trying, that I didn't want to be so excited about and then not have to, give it a real good shot and experience it myself. But I also was like, for it to be complete, for me to share, with people, I want to do this piece of the puzzle and really
mm,
be through and through animal based. And so I did. So I booked myself a trip for my birthday in May. Um, in yeah, this past May actually.
Wow.
And I did a lot of research on it too because I didn't want to be involved with people who did hunting as a sport, right? I wanted it to be involved in a hunting practice that not only respected our emotions and the land and the animal, and also just do it for nourishment as opposed to, like I said, a sport. So his name is Monsell Denton, and he does, it's called Sacred Hunting. And so I had listened to his podcast, and I think specifically one with, oh, who's that guy? I can't think of him right now. Kinsbury.
Oh, Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, cool. Is he in Texas? What's his name? Miles?
Monsell Denton. Yeah,
Oh, Montel Denson. Is he in Texas?
hmm
Very cool.
Yeah, you should totally do a hunting trip with him for sure. It's just it was incredible. And so when I researched him, it's called Sacred Hunting. It was just, very spiritual practice, and I couldn't have been happier with my first experience hunting. So I booked a trip May for my birthday, got my rifle, got my camera gear, everything. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And like leading up to it, it actually, it made me very emotional. I'm like, I don't like to come face to face with
Mm.
that process of it. Like, yeah, that's emotional. I'm like, I don't know if, behind the scope I can pull the trigger. I'm not sure. And so all of these things leading up to it what were a little bit terrifying, but I wanted to again lean into the fear. And this kind of is where the workshop comes into hand, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
seeing the fear, seeing the narrative that it can create, and just leaning into it to get to the other side. And like I said, it was just such a beautiful uh, experience to be a part of. Did I kill an animal? No, because I didn't get the opportunity. But amongst our group, we did get some animals. And yeah, again, the practice was very beautiful. The meat that we consumed that evening was completely different. So it was just such a spiritual experience. And though somebody commented on that thread too, which I thought was really beautiful, just about maybe they couldn't do it, they couldn't be face to face with hunting, which was okay, but that maybe we're part of a bigger community where other people play those roles for us.
Mm.
When I'm kind of on the mindset, especially like probably all of us are, is like taking control of our health, don't trust anybody, especially in Western med, like you got to just question everything and so on and so forth. So I come from those lenses where it was really nice to kind of feel like I can trust the community again, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I don't have to go all in and hunt for my food and feel like I earned it, and respect it just in that way. I can still
Mm.
respect it while other people play those roles, because that's just what community does.
Mm.
What was the feeling like eating the food from an animal that was alive maybe 12 hours before you were consuming it, and you were actually actively part of the animal's death and transition into the next realm?
Yeah, it was, yeah, it was such an experience because the dinner table was just more silent. Like
Mm-hmm.
you would make eye contact with people across the dinner table and just meant more.
Mm.
And whatever that means, whether it was the experience together or just like the understanding of where this came from. Gratitude for sure, just like grateful that these animals exist for our nourishment and for our survival. And though I think that there's also an appreciation of having those feelings too, to actually think about, because it's okay to um, feel sad and feel scared, and also equally feel grateful, and feel
Mm.
grateful that you do feel those emotions, feel sad and feel like something obviously must die in order for something to live. And so it was just an awareness that I just don't normally have when it's store-bought meat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking of store-bought meat, for people who are just getting kind of into the animal-based world, do you have any recommendations for how to navigate the grocery store and just like make it simple? I feel like most grocery stores today, like there's like 5% food and 95% just like food like substances.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So I feel like it can be made really simple. But obviously most people are getting their food from a grocery store, a convenience store, or even a gas station, which I think is part of the problem. But any tips on just navigating the grocery store and keeping it simple?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess it always comes from what point of entry do you come from? Do you come from a cost perspective? Do you come from a optimal perspective where it's like, I want the best of the best, top of the line, no questions? Or is it like, a perspective, I got to feed my family and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want my kids at the table being like, I don't want that crap, you know?
Right.
So it's really hard. And again, this is all individual. It's all these questions that I have to ask for, for families and for the individual. But if, none of these really were an issue, or just a challenge, I would probably just obviously stay away from anything in between the aisles and,
Yes.
stick to the ends of the aisles. And, I would look for when you go to the butcher at the store. I would go to the butcher first before going to the prepackaged aisle because typically they have, fresher meat, and it's ground there or it's just cut there where it's not really in plastic yet. And then you can also actually have a little bit more contact too with the people who are, dealing
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
your food. And yeah, and go with the things that go with the meats that you enjoy first, right? So it doesn't have to be like, oh, she's doing ground beef all the time, so I'm gonna do that, and it has to be beef. It has to be beef. No, if you like lamb, do lamb.
Yeah.
Maybe if you like chicken, you like chicken. Like, I don't want people to stress out. And this is the thing. It's like if people stress out too much about picking the most optimal, just
Yes.
because sometimes we do share that on Instagram where like this is like, oh, okay, this is optimal. And I think that I probably need to soften my stance a little bit on that because I think it'll help more people if I do. So that's like a little task for me to take that,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully apply it to my social strategy. But don't stress yourself out. Get the meat, even if it's like cornbread, just don't worry about it right now. Just start at the basics and do that. Get yourself some milk, find some milk, and then find some cheese if you want. Again, depending on dairy allergies and what have you. Find the fruit that's appealing to you. Take out the offending seeds, and get yourself some honey and start there. So figure if you even like, and then of course if cost is a challenge for you, find the cheaper of the stuff, but start with those ingredients because those are the baseline of it, and then worry about how to optimize and how to get the best of the best later, because
Mhm.
it's more important to see if you can actually handle this diet and do it um, first before you start getting too crazy in your head about it.
Totally. And that is one of the downsides, I think, to social media. And we see this a lot on Twitter where we're primarily involved, is that there are just so many purists and they're like, oh, if it's not grass fed, grass finished from your local farmer, you're doing it wrong. If you're not even eating liver and testicle, you're doing it wrong. And that's really tough for someone that's just getting started. And you just shared some of your experience and your journey. When I was trying to heal my ulcerative colitis in New York, my budget was basically like grocery store meat in New York. But guess what? It's like, I got the grocery store meat. I started experimenting. I learned how to cook, and that still healed my stomach. And then over time, it's been like a progression. You start introducing raw milk, you start sourcing from the farm. But I think that your point of like, don't let perfection get in the way of being really good is just so important for a lot of people that are trying to get started, but they don't necessarily know where to start because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I just like there's a big thing of don't beat yourself up over it. And I really live by that, the fact that there is almost like the phrase, there is addition by subtraction,
Mm.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So you have more of a fulfilling, um, I guess, nutritional lifestyle if you subtract. So by eliminating the offending foods, right, that are causing all of these issues and like autoimmune diseases and things like that, you're already at a good spot and you've already upgraded, in my opinion, right? And so you're right. And it's really hard to find that balance to tell people that, like, sure, this is optimal if you can find grass fed, grass finished, raw, and all these great things. Like, sure, this is here, but the level, like the barrier to entry is, it is here, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Like, how do you find that balance on Instagram in 1 minute reels to reach
Totally.
people, because reels are a thing and they have to be 1 minute, and it's like, how do you say all of that or all of this? I guess that's what these podcasts are for.
Yes,
Dive into the
exactly.
like this, the in between the reels and the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so that is definitely my approach, and so I really look forward to just trying my best to come from that perspective for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I feel like a lot of people who have figured out their health in whatever way that is, they're probably much less practical. Like they forget how hard it was to take that first step into figuring it all out. And once you're far enough down the rabbit hole, you lose that perspective. And it's always just refreshing to hear someone who has that perspective, who's figured out their health. It's like you need to be able to speak from like the idealist standpoint, which is like probably what you live like 99% of the time. Like you're living your ideal nutritional strategy. And then there's also like the practical part, which is like most people are coming from zero or like the standard American diet. So yeah, just finding that balance is so key. And like the mental aspect too, I appreciate. It's like there is so much of this psychology behind it. It's not just like eat this, eat that. Like people are we're emotional beings. We're dealing with these sets of emotions as we figure these things out. Um, so I just appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, and cultural demands too, right?
Mm.
Right.
We're not always, we're not the same culture. People come from different backgrounds for sure. And I think that I can definitely be better at that too, because this has actually been just a lifelong journey for me. I mean, as I mentioned, I started martial arts and gymnastics since I was 5. So I was always, fueling for performance.
Mm,
So food, nutrition, and, I what my intake was to like keep feeling the feeling myself, was my focus day in and day out. So
Mhm.
reaching this sort of level and this sort of perspective and applying it to my own personal life, has gotten me, like, it's been my existence 36 years, right? Well,
yeah.
less than that. I started, martial arts and eating stuff like that 35. Okay, maybe like 25 to 30 years, right? It's been my entire existence that was my priority on a daily basis. And I'm still learning and I'm still growing and I still always will. And I still know that, my stance may soften, change, adapt, whatever in the future. And I'm
Mhm.
open to that. But I do think that, like you said, Harry, it's like people are coming from different spots and may just be beginning, like, as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about everything that you've learned, Lindsay, over your 25, 26-year journey, like you mentioned, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you see when it comes to female health that you really want to correct over the coming years?
Oh, that question.
Probably a lot, but
Yeah. Hmm. Just, I think some of the misconceptions are that we have to deal with certain things because of hormones, because we're women, because, like, no. So I think that's the biggest one. And I don't think it's really based off of anything. Like,
Mhm.
it's not real. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to deal with PMS. We don't have to deal with moodiness. We don't have to deal with, just endometriosis and PCOS and just,
Mm,
infertility, and like, we don't have to deal with that if we reclaim our health and take control of our health.
So you're saying there are nutritional ways around all these problems that are just perceived as like non-starters. You're just doomed. This is what you have to deal with.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like we've had some great conversations with some women recently, and it's really opened my eyes to the whole. I mean, it's actually funny because I feel like a lot of women don't understand their own personal health. So then when it gets translated to guys, we're just even more aloof. Um,
Yeah.
um, but like I feel like it's kind of one of those things too. Like when you do get into relationships, you want to be supportive, but you also like don't want to be the one who's like telling them what to do, what to eat. If you do have like a different perspective on things, um, I guess my point here is like one of the things I've noticed is this aversion to animal-based food by women, and that like fundamental principle, I think, just steers them in the completely wrong direction. You being animal-based bae, I'm sure you have a strong perspective on this, but if there's a message that you could get out there to like, the former vegan or the recovering vegan, what would that be?
Yeah, just I mean, I guess like in another answer to your other question, Brett, too, as it ties
Mhm.
into this, another, misconception is that women feel like they have to like eat less, right? Just be at
Yes.
a calorie deficit. And I know that I was going more off of like the quality of life and how we feel and our hormones, but like this, just something as simple as calorie deficit for weight loss and for this and that. It's like that is probably the major issue. And I don't know if a lot of vegans or vegetarians think that way, but I think that you can actually, it's almost like you can actually eat a little bit you are eating less in this diet
Yes.
in ways and just more nutritious, like nutrient dense foods, right? It's like you have to eat tons and tons of lettuce and kale and all that stuff and still be like not as rich in calories. And so I would probably just say, to vegans or vegetarians or anything, just, look at your life and how are you feeling? Are you feeling low energy? Like, do you think there's room for improvement?
Mm.
And also to not be so stuck on advocacy, right? There's a difference between the journey of science and being an advocate.
Right.
And, if I find there's a lot of struggle in letting go of old ideals and what we were taught, and oh no, I have to relearn, kind of like we were talking about
Mm.
um, with the martial arts. It's like you have to like re-enter this physical sport again, and you're nervous and you're scared, and it's just like to let go and to like relearn or to re-educate yourself is just really hard. And I think that maybe that's the point, is that people are afraid to just like let
Mm.
go and try. I know when I actually had a food business for 3 years, and it was more, didn't have like processed sugars or seed oils and anything like that, but it was like whole food based, and it had some vegan spreads. But I struggled with letting go of that business because that no longer was what I believed in anymore.
Mm.
And so I can see where people who have had years and years of experience, let's say they're, in Ayurvedic medicine or herbal medicines and things like that, that like, no way, no way that this, animal based or carnivore diet is the right way because I've learned this up to this point. So maybe just spreading the message of just like letting go and trying and seeing how you feel.
Yeah, I feel like one of the big things that I've taken from our conversation with you is this willingness to continue to iterate and experiment on yourself. And like you said, the whole goal of this, of what we're doing nutritionally, is to feel the best possible. So, like, if you've been trying something for a certain period of time and you don't feel your best, well, that's encouragement to switch it up and tinker. And that's what we talk a lot about. Harry mentioned this before, but like being willing to cook your own meals and experiment with real foods and figure out what ratios work them make the most sense for you. So like when I was really sick and inflamed, it was basically just red meat, salt, eggs, bone broth I could tolerate. But
Mhm.
now it's like I can do well on some fruit and some berries, and maybe I will incorporate some vegetables every now and then. But the whole point is like you have to keep shifting and experimenting. And I think a lot of the really well-known influencers in the nutrition space, they can even get super dogmatic or not willing to bend and shift. So like what you're saying, I just think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and to add to that too, I do recommend, even for the people who are eating vegetables, understand that process and
Hmm.
what our ancestors used to do to make it the least toxic and more nutrient dense
Mm,
available. So what did they used to do? Ferment, boil, all of these things. Maybe take a foraging class,
yes.
understand the plant kingdom and where it comes from. And I think the more that we understand that, um, from a how you can eat something in order for something to be more nutritious, then that opens people up to, oh, okay, what do you mean? Like maybe the raw vegans or the raw vegetarians be like, oh, I see like why I can't eat, it raw, and then we have to cook. I was listening to somebody, it was Dr. Nadir Ali, and he's a cardiologist, and one of his episodes on YouTube, and he was like, "Are we omnivores or carnivores? Like, what is the best for us as humans?" And he was like, and he said something along the lines of cuisinivores. We're cuisinivores or something. So
Mm,
which is essentially like we cook our food.
Mm,
So I'm like, oh, I kind of resonate with that because, like, again, the vegans and the vegetarians can at least understand the hows,
right.
and and go from there. Same thing with, I think, in the carnivore and animal-based world as well, too. I think certain people can't handle raw meat, and that's not because they're grossed out or because, the taste or anything like that. It's more simply because of maybe they're older and their stomach acid isn't as good, and it's
hmm, hmm.
so there's so many levels of just understanding your food that will help with adjusting your lifestyle. So
Mm. What is sort of a public figure at this point with your Instagram profile? How do you feel about kind of changing your perspective on things going forward, like as you learn? And because it seems like you're just very experimentative with like your entire life. So like as you learn, like do you still feel comfortable kind of like being adaptive and making those changes with that public persona?
yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of scary because there's a lot of people out there that'll hold you to your word a year ago.
Right.
um, and I think I get it to some degree, but as I mentioned before, there's a journey here of science that's always going to be evolving. And so even myself, I should always question myself. It will continue to keep me honest. I love when people, question and then also make suggestions of things that could be more optimal. I don't know everything. Um, and so, yeah, I believe that to be able to say that I'm wrong or soften my stance on something that I was so adamant about, just makes it, more relatable and real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
So you were telling us before we hit record that you've got some pretty exciting plans coming up. Maybe an RV is involved, maybe not. Can we dig into that a little bit?
Sure. So I am planning a, yeah, I mean, it's still in the infancy stages, so I don't want to say everything, but whatever.
Okay.
I guess I'm only going to get in trouble with myself.
Yeah.
Damn it, come to my office. So yeah, I'm planning a tour in March around the US, and making a few stops in different anchor states, but then also just traveling to a bunch of different states in between as well. And really, maybe it's going to be a vlog like lifestyle that can really share my experiences, the successes and the challenges of being on the road, being in a new place, like where and how I dive into sourcing all my meals and things like that from, and how I do it, how I prepare it, so that people can kind of get a little bit more of a real life experience rather than just trying to see some stories and the 1 minute reels that really don't capture everything.
Mm.
And then hopefully I can, have some MEAT ups with communities all over the world. I just want to connect with my audience a little bit more and hopefully show them some solutions to some of the things that I'm, hearing via social media. And I feel like if I'm not there, like in their state or doing what they're doing, I feel like I can't help them as if I were in Costa Rica or something. So,
Right.
Mm.
That's so cool. We've had some really like great community events based around the whole meetup concept. So I'm excited to hear what comes from that, because you can't really beat the in-person stuff. And after COVID and after everything being so virtual, just having that real in-person experience and connection with people, even down in Costa Rica, it was just awesome. Like you just meet people who there's like at least a basis of something that you guys can relate to. And the commonalities from there kind of just like really unfold pretty quickly. But I think that the idea sounds so cool. So are you gonna plan on going to like farms? Like what's kind of the road tour? Like what would the dream vision look like?
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely gonna hit up some farms and talk to the farmers and just hear more from them. Again, it's another way to bridge the gap if let's say people can't go hunting or let's say people can't go to their local farmers markets and talk to the farmers direct. Like hopefully I can bridge that gap and maybe be in their hometown just to show them what the farmers are doing, the people who are close to your food. So but yeah, I totally agree, Harry. It's just like the community, the more that you're surrounded by like-minded people, it's just like
Mm.
that is another piece of nourishment, like through and through.
Totally. And we've forgotten that, right, through COVID, how important these in-person events are. And like this movement is growing so much, and we're optimistic that it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger as time goes on. But for now, it's like it's not super common to find other carnivores in your area unless you live in a place like Austin where there's just a big concentration of them. So to be able to have these meetups and connect in person and then share those resources, like for you, it's like, hey, this is the farm that I use to get my organ meats from. And then someone else in the area is like, oh, awesome. Now I can use that same farm too. Just that exchange of information is so valuable for people.
Yeah, I actually or I didn't book it yet, but I'm in the process of planning a trip to Portugal
Nice.
in October. And it's actually really neat how I contacted these people kind of through Instagram. But there's, a little bit of maneuvering that you have to do in order to find these people. But I found two people that I'm chatting with that are in the kind of carnivore community. It was like, oh, this is cool. I can connect with them. And so then they have given suggestions, as well as connect me to somebody within the community. Where in Portugal it's like a lot of people think about going to Lisbon, and I've never been a tourist. I don't enjoy it. I like being, I guess I call myself a traveler because
Mm.
I really and it's okay to be a tourist if you are, absolutely, but just like my MO is I like to be a traveler where I'm just immersed into the culture, the local scene, right? I'm not a big scene person. And so a lot of people go to Lisbon for Portugal. But there's more carnivore based community from Porto and up north. Like you're going to find
Mm.
more animal based stuff up there. And so I was like, oh, okay. Because originally I was thinking about going to Porto and then going down the coast down, but instead I'm going to go up. And, with their suggestions too, it just really helps navigate in the travel scene. And I know that's a big pain point for some people too. It's like, well, what do I do when I travel? And other than pack your stuff or go to the grocery store and cook at home, well, maybe you can experience more culture if you seek out the people who are still in that community. Because like you said, Brett and Harry, that the culture is growing or the community is growing, and that's awesome. And there are people out there that you can find somewhere in the world. Just reach out, do your homework, and you can have those travel experiences too without just being locked in your Airbnb or hotel room cooking food because like meat is not available in, I don't
Mm,
know, Italy when there's pasta everywhere. But I'm sure there's spots where there's not either.
that's so cool. Especially going overseas and doing some of this traveling and trying to connect with other people who are eating similar to you. It's like you're kind of breaking that cultural divide, which, you know, for everyone is different. I mean, you go to Italy and they're not going to want to hear anything anyone has to say about food other than what Italian food culture is. So
Right.
it's cool traveling and just getting that experience. You know, the culinary experience. We're both pretty inspired by what like Anthony Bourdain did,
Yeah.
just traveling around and getting to see the world through the lens of food. It's powerful.
Did you all see the documentary The Roadrunner?
I did, yeah. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I just saw it the other day, and actually, I was thinking about watching it months ago, but then it just wasn't available. Yeah, I thought it was. I loved it, and it's so true because, like, there's a bunch of different things. Like, I love that he tried all of the things that he did, and it was definitely started out as a food thing, but it grew to be certainly more of that and about the culture and the community, and then just how much life is intertwined with the food that we eat, and so I think the important part of that as well is not really separating those. And I think that
Mm,
sometimes this community does that unintentionally, right? We're
Mhm.
just like, oh, we're, eating our food here, and let's be, purist, and then take ourselves out of the fact that there's also like a community involvement as well, and cultural involvement, which makes us uniquely human. And
Mhm.
so it was a beautiful story. I mean, Bourdain's just entire life and his story was awesome. And yeah, I think that's also what really inspired me to be like, I feel like I want to do that and like reconnect those pieces, but in a, in a different, in an animal base, through an animal based lens.
yeah, even the way that you describe traveler versus tourist, I feel like that's what he did so well. Where it's like if he's going to Thailand or Vietnam or here's something, he's going to like the little street noodle vendor on the side and sitting there in like a tiny little chair with like a 5 cent beer or whatever, and just enjoying the local cuisine and like truly integrating himself in the community and respecting the community. And I think that's like just what made him so special is you felt like, hey, even though I've never been here, this is probably like the second best way to familiarize myself with the country is like watching his show besides physically going there. So it's just really special.
And did you see him too? It's like he ate I think it was a snake's beating heart or something crazy.
Yes, it's
I,
insane.
I know. And so I think that there's also a way to maybe, show that way of eating as well too, maybe
Mhm.
Mhm.
different countries. And so which brings from a little bit more of a historical perspective, just because these days it's a little bit more processed. So I think it would just be interesting seeking out these communities, because then it has a little bit more steeped in cultural tradition to center around trying to find animal based like nutrition within the culture.
We have a podcast that's recorded, not posted yet, with a guy named Dr. Bill Schindler, and his book
Okay.
is called Eat Like a Human. Do you know him?
I love him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is the man. He's so awesome. And I was just gonna say, he traveled the world, and it sounds like I would love to have had some footage of like him traveling the world because I loved just his perspective. It's very like culturally aware. Like he's not going to go to like some of these other places. Like he said, he was with the Samuru tribe and drinking blood and milk. It's like for most people in America, they would think that's freaking crazy. Uh,
Right.
but just like being able to think through, like, hey, culturally, this is how it's normal here, and yeah, I just think it's like a helpful perspective for people to get a hold of.
Yeah, I highly recommend him as well, just to listen to. Yeah, he's got a really great balanced perspective on it all, and just even through in reflecting from his own journey too, of just being a little bit more dogmatic and then coming around to a more balanced outlook. He's great. And yeah, I love that he traveled around, and I think that information definitely needs to be shared more, and you learn more. And I'm, you know,
Mm.
as you guys have mentioned too, I'm just always about self-experimenting, and that doesn't mean just in my kitchen as like a chemist self-experimenting. It means like getting out there, getting uncomfortable, and trying to overcome challenges, and what that means. What are, okay, if I can't just always have liver and pancreas and kidneys and just like grass fed and raw this on my cutting board, what are the better choices? How would I go to pick my choices and to choose my choices and to nourish my body accordingly?
Totally. Well, we're both incredibly excited for you on those journeys, the traveling journey, and let us know if there's anything that we could do to help you promote events or get involved. We would love to do that. But for Lindsay, for anyone that's looking to just connect with you a little bit more to learn more about what you've got going on, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and do that?
Yeah, probably Instagram right now. That's all I can handle.
Yeah.
Animal Based Bay 2.0. I do have a TikTok that's just Animal Based Bay, but I haven't really been posting on there often, just because sort of just consumed and overwhelmed by Instagram. And then, yeah, I have a link in my bio that you can kind of navigate there, how else to get in touch with me, and I do phone consultations as well, to help just really cover a lot of ground in 1 hour. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. This was so fun. Great to cover a little bit of ground on a bunch of different topics and learn more about what you're up to. So hopefully we can share a steak soon. And thanks for joining us, Lindsay. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much.